In the US, 14 states have reached a $26 billion settlement deal with drug companies accused of fueling America's deadly opioid epidemic. It's the largest corporate settlement since Big Tobacco, and officials are hopeful the funds will help end the crisis that's led to 500,000 people dying of drug overdoses. Laila Humairah has more.
The COVID-19 pandemic has kept US authorities busy over the past year, diverting their attention from another acute health crisis, the opioid epidemic.
COVID's just taken over. Like they're not focusing on anything else but COVID.
As a result, many recovering addicts have relapsed.
I had to sit at home, you isolate yourself, and both of those things are not, conducive to recovery.
93,000 Americans died of a drug overdose in 2020. Now, efforts to tackle the opioid crisis could get a big boost. A group of states has reached a landmark settlement with the firms accused of fueling the epidemic.
Numerous companies that manufactured and distributed this poison did so without any regard for human life and for the national crisis that they caused.
Under the deal, pharmacy chains McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen will pay a combined $21 billion to states, and drug maker Johnson & Johnson will be fined $5 billion. The agreement requires states to use the funds on treatment and awareness campaigns and to help first responders.
Hopefully it'll be enough where people can start getting better access to treatment and things like that at the local level where, entire cities and counties have just been decimated in some cases.
Officials are keen to avoid the mistakes of 1998. Back then, states used a $200 billion settlement from tobacco companies to plug budget holes instead of helping survivors. But some drug reform advocates are underwhelmed. They say the fines are too small and the punishment too light for the extent of the damage caused.
I turned to the life of selling drugs to support my life. And I went to prison for a long time because of that. And this doesn't, to me, discourage this from happening again because no one is going to prison for this.
The deal needs the support of more than 40 states and hundreds of cities and county governments. That would resolve the more than 3,000 lawsuits against drug companies that, despite the pain their pills have caused, continue to deny any wrongdoing. Laila Humairah, TRT World.
Well, for more on the landmark settlement and how it can help affected communities, let's bring in Robert Kanter. He's an international drug recovery advocate and he joins us now from New York. Good to have you back with us, Robert. So we have a $26 billion deal on the table, but when you look at the fine print, Johnson & Johnson will pay $5 billion over 9 years, while the other three drug firms will pay $21 billion over 18 years. I'm wondering if I can get your reaction to this deal. Is it enough?
First of all, it's an honor and privilege to be here. Thank you for having me. The media coverage on this is important and it's very exciting. Most of us in the recovery community are ecstatic about this because the funds need to be going, and they should be going at the end of September, to treatment. And this litigation was expected to take time into September. And when you do that, lives are lost. And I think I know there was pressure on McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen, as well as Johnson & Johnson, to resolve this because the CDC numbers just shot up to 93,000 overdose fatalities. And there was a balance. It was a balance between settling this lawsuit, maybe not getting as much money as the states feel and the municipalities feel that they should, but at the same time, let's get the money flowing to treatment because it's so desperately needed.
Yes, but when you compare this $26 billion settlement to the $246 billion deal that was reached with tobacco companies back in 1998, the opioid agreement does seem significantly smaller. Should the attorneys generals have perhaps pushed harder and even waited longer in order to get a bigger deal for, future victims of this opioid crisis?
Right. So we dropped the ball when it came to the tobacco settlement. I mean, that was very tragic there. That will not happen again. We have recovery advocates, congressmen, senators that are right on top of this because we're in a public health crisis right now. We lost more Americans last year in 2020 than we did in the Vietnam War. That is not going to happen again. Trust me. We will not let this money siphon into other areas. It will be pretty much all of the money will be going to treatment. It will be going to community organization and for social services programs, and we'll be on top of that this time. There's a lot of outcry in the government, U.S. Congress, and I assure you that will not happen again. Listen, we had to accelerate this. The numbers are flying through the roof every day that there's no treatment. Lives are lost. So how long are you going to have protracted litigation? You just at some point have to say, okay, let's compromise and let's get this going.
In order to receive the full $26 billion payout, the settlement needs support from at least 48 states, 98% of litigating local governments and 97% of the jurisdictions that have yet to file any lawsuits. It really is a high threshold, isn't it? Especially when you consider that those who accept the agreement can no longer sue these 4 companies in the future or will have to drop any existing litigation. Are there perhaps, is the threshold too high? Are there too many strings attached?
Yes, absolutely. The threshold is too high. This is what they negotiated. And the hardest hit state happens to be West Virginia. They're the ones that brought the lawsuit, Huntington County, Cable County. The majority of the funds will be going to the larger states. So they don't feel they're getting their lion's share. And meanwhile, they were hardest hit of all the states in the opioid epidemic, in the opioid crisis. So that's another uphill battle. But again, it's going to be all about compromise. The state, at the state level, at the municipality level, they're going to say, look, let's take the money. Our residents in our counties are dying. So we hope that the same mentality that has been used now to reach this settlement will also be used on the lower levels of government. There is one thing I want to mention, one element of this settlement that's very important, which is that Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen, and McKesson will now share information on their shipments. They never did that before. So now each company will know what the other is doing, and the appropriate red flags will now go to prevent the pill dumping that occurred before.
It was interesting to read Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson respond to this deal. He's formally rejected the settlement, saying it, quote, stretches woefully insufficient funds into small payments over nearly 20 years to be shared among more than 300 Washington jurisdictions. So clearly he thinks this deal isn't good enough. Do you expect other states might be hesitant as well to sign on?
Oh, they will definitely be hesitant. But again, in the recovery community, we're ecstatic. And this is the argument. We're not getting enough money. Okay, I think it's ridiculous to say, okay, let's wait for more money. And let's pile on 1,000 overdose fatalities by the time this is settled. Look at the picture you have up on the screen right now. You have to compromise at some point. You're dealing with large Fortune 500 corporations. They report to their board of directors. They don't really care that much. And maybe I'm stretching that by saying that. For them, this is about money. For the recovery community, it's about saving lives. Let's get the process going. Let's just get it going. Let's get the money funded. We'll figure out more money later. Time to save some lives.
Okay, Robert Kanter, we will have to leave it there, but it's always great to get your analysis. Thank you again for joining us on the program.